some point. We just wrapped up, Joe, week
9.
Wow. Not close, really.
No, 17.
No. You guys have no idea with how much confidence he just said week 17.
Week 11.
No.
13.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Fair. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Slim Jimmy's favorite football podcast.
Jimmy.
Slim Jimmy. I'm joined by my illustrious producer,
man.
Joe Teason. How's it going, my friend?
Really good. I'm actually glad you brought up Slim Jimmy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about him a little
We
bit
were.
before the pod. For those that don't know, who is Slim Jimmy?
Basically, Slim Jimmy is the better half of a rap group collective called Sremmurd.
Ray Sremmurd.
So
He's kind of like the unsung hero of the group, sort of like the Ringo Starr,
Yeah.
you know, of
like the
Ray
Ringo
Sremmurd.
Starr. Kind of like the Louis Tomlinson
Louis Tomlinson of One Direction.
of
1D?
One Direction. Yeah.
Which one is that? The One Direction.
Yeah, because you don't know.
No, I don't. Is that the blonde one?
No, that's Niall.
Okay. No, I actually don't.
I do know, and I do know all of them.
Louis
don't
is
make me
okay.
say
No,
them.
here, give me another shot to
Okay.
guess which one Louis is. Short hair, brown.
Okay. Zayn also has short brown hair.
No, but Zayn, I know which one Zayn is. Zayn is like the really beautiful hair now, and like he's like a big.
I don't know.
He's like no, Zayn is the dark hair black. Harry is the one with the hair.
Harry
Obviously,
has the
Harry
has- yeah.
Styles, and then there's Zayn. He's the so I do know them all. Louis,
Yes.
is he the one that's Irish or Scottish or?
You know
What?
more than me, apparently. I don't know.
I actually know a lot. This is a test.
I don't know that much about them.
Okay, well, apparently I do know all of them. Which one was the blonde one?
His name was Niall Horan.
Niall Horan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they all went on to make their own music.
That's crazy. Good for them. Slim Jimmy, it's time for you to go on
Slim
and make
Jimmy,
your
it's time for
make your
you.
own music.
Your buddy Ray Sremmurd has been, sorry, one more time.
Fail.
Your buddy, what's his name? Your buddy Sway Lee has been doing it for years. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Sway Lee's all over Spider-Man. He's making that
Yeah.
Sunflower song with Post Malone. What
Mhm.
else is he doing? What else?
He had that one song with French Montana that
French
was really
Montana.
popular.
Oh yeah, sing it for me once.
Unforgettable.
Unforgettable. Yeah, you are. Go ahead. Okay, that's fine.
That was bad too, but
For most people listening to this podcast, they have still no clue who Slim Jimmy is. This is the Average Joe Football Show. In case you didn't know, we will talk football at some point. We just wrapped up, Joe, week
9.
Wow, not close, really.
No, 17.
No. You guys have no idea with how much confidence he just said week 17.
Week 11.
No.
13.
13.
Yeah.
First try, baby.
First try.
Great thing is that you can edit the podcast so you can make it seem like you got it
First try, great guy.
First try, great guy. Yes. Week 13 of the NFL season. Another wild week in the 2020 NFL season. What has been a wild week. And we will get to football. Obviously, we'll get to football at some point. Before we go any further, quick shout out to the Mic'd Up podcast. Joe, stop staring at me.
No, you're dinging up. You keep
making
when
noise.
You do that,
Sorry.
your ring hits the mic.
I'm messing with my mic again. Joe hates it when I do that.
Joe does this thing whenever we record. Is he never has his hand off of the mic and he's just twisting and just over tightening this knob constantly.
Yeah. And now we've actually had to change mic stands because I broke the other one.
Now I have to fix his.
Well, listen, when you're the host, one day you'll understand. Okay.
Oh.
Hosts need to twist some knobs into. Anyways, listen to the Mic'd Up podcast with Billy, Nick, and Mike. They're now, for now, exclusively a football podcast.
Actually.
Yeah, they changed it up.
Good.
They have to pay us, obviously, for the rights to do that.
Yeah.
But
and it wasn't cheap.
No, absolutely not.
Like we made them pay
No. Well,
but
it's like we kind of came up with the whole football podcast. Like we're
yeah,
like we were the first football podcast on the internet.
Yeah.
And
then
yeah,
people started coming in,
yeah,
flooding in.
Exactly. It's like if you can't just use Mickey Mouse. You can't just like, oh, Mickey Mouse is there. Let me just have him now. No, you got to pay for that.
You have to pay for that.
You got to, yeah. And it's like
there's some kind of copyright. There's some kind of trademark.
Yeah, exactly right. You cannot use football. But yeah, we made them pay. But, they're still a decent podcast. I'm just kidding. They're a really great podcast. Super fun guys. They have a lot of fun. Sometimes more fun than us, I would say.
Well, they have like 5 guys sitting in a room just having a great old time.
Yeah, and they're southern.
We're 2 losers sitting in my bedroom.
2 loser white boys and nowhere Canada talking about a sport that nobody here even watches. But no, positive vibes. Positive vibes for today. Speaking of positive vibes, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. And if you do that on Apple Podcasts, you leave us a 5-star rating, a 5-star review. When you go to leave us a review, you can write a personalized message in that review. Whatever you write in that personalized message, we will say on the podcast.
But it has to be directed. It has to be like.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean. It's not like they say this was a great podcast. Yeah. We say this person said this was a great podcast.
No, yeah, it's got to be something like let's make it worth our while here.
You have to say shout this out, say this.
Yeah, or like a funny joke that you have, or something super crude, or something like that. Yeah, so do that. Make sure you follow us on social medias at _Average Joe Show. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. That wraps up today's episode. Hope you guys had. Just kidding.
That would have been nice.
That would have been. Can you imagine if we could go home and sleep now?
A quick edit, and then
a quick edit and a good night. We could upload this by tonight, probably.
Yeah, in probably 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. But Joe, I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about before we get into every single game from week 13 of the NFL season.
I do want to say that I think going to win in our fantasy league.
Oh, so, that's funny because I don't think you will.
I think I'm 3rd place right now.
Yeah, but the thing is that this was the last week of the regular season, and I really, really hate to do this to you live on the podcast, break this news to you. This was the last week of the regular season, so I now will most likely bump into 1st place. And then our good buddy Joel will go into 2nd place. He was formerly 1st place in our division. You will be 3rd place, which is respectable. We all actually have the same record. But only the 2 top teams in each division go to the playoffs.
So I'm still going to get the money, honey, right?
No, that's literally the opposite of what I'm telling you right now. You're
saying I'm not going to get the dough?
No, do, re, mi. I think that's how it works. I'm pretty sure the playoffs are starting this week. Although I'm a commissioner for the first time this year, and there's I'm not doing a great job of it at all times. But I could be wrong. But
I won.
You won. Yeah, you did win. You put a big win up again. Another dominating win by you. Give us a rundown. What was the final score on that?
Final score, I went against our other good buddy Justin. And I beat him 104.12 to 81.
Wow. That's tough, Justin.
Yeah. Well, actually, Justin Tucker scored 0 points.
Well, he's playing right now.
So he's playing right now, actually. So he needs to make 23 points.
And that's impossible, I would say, probably.
Well, you ever seen somebody kick a 50-yard field goal?
Yes, probably. Not probably. For sure, I've seen somebody kick a 50-yard field goal. I don't think it's worth 23 points. But speaking of the game, there's a game going on right now for the second week
in a row.
Week in a row. The Baltimore Ravens are playing a game that is super inconvenient to the podcast. We were like, when we started this podcast, hey, when the season starts, we'll record on Tuesday because that way all the games are over, and then we'll get to upload it and then get ready for the next week. But because COVID has been a complete mess and, games are being played every single day of the week, essentially, the Ravens and Cowboys are playing right now. So that game will not be reviewed on today's podcast, but we're going to talk about every other game from Week 13, just like we usually do. We're going to go through our picks, maybe talk a little playoffs as the playoffs are coming down to the wire.
Talk a little special.
Okay, yeah. I almost forgot. You wanna do the honors?
No.
Are we thinking of the same thing?
I'm pregnant?
Don't say that.
Then no.
Don't say that. People are gonna listen to this podcast and actually freak out. Now
It's impossible for me to be pregnant, Joe.
Well, but some people say when their wives are pregnant, they say that they're pregnant as well.
Oh, okay.
So now, your brother or somebody listening to this podcast, just shut it off right that second. Yeah, and they were excited that you're pregnant, but you're not actually pregnant.
Yeah.
But no, the surprise. Next week, Joe, what's going on next week on the podcast?
Next week we're gonna have a little bit of a special guest.
Actually. Guest.
Yeah, we're gonna have a special guest. It's gonna be the first time we've ever actually done that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be new. It's gonna be exciting. I'm gonna have to figure it out how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I need to find another chair.
That's really the biggest thing.
That is the biggest deal. I need to find another bar height chair. So if you guys have any bar height like stools or chairs, I'd appreciate just
make sure you give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and then tell us where we can pick up your chair.
I will rent.
I will
for a fair fee. But yeah,
I would actually prefer renting. I don't really have any place to put this bar height chair. Fun fact, just a little peek behind the curtain. We don't even have 2 bar height. So we're sitting at a bar height table. We don't even have 2 of them. I'm sitting on a bar height chair.
Yeah.
And Joe, what are you sitting on?
Can we just call it a bar stool?
A bar stool? Well, it's not a stool though. It's got like a back.
What do you call it? Okay, a bar chair.
Okay, fine, bar chair.
Okay.
Joe, what are you sitting on?
I'm sitting on a regular chair from my kitchen table. It has a wooden box on top of it.
like a wee little boy.
So I am taller than Joe when we're sitting here.
All right, let me just adjust real quick. It's going to sit up tall.
Okay.
You can't tell because we're very far away from each other, but I am still taller. We are just completely all over the place right now. We should maybe get to football, right? Or you got anything else you want to say?
Next week, special guest. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be very nice.
It's going to be wild. It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious. It's going to be sexy. It's going to be comedic, Joe, what else is it going to be?
Wow. Honestly, it's going to be funny. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild.
It's going to be silly.
It's going to be sporty.
Honestly,
it might get silly.
Yeah.
It might get a little intense.
Whoa.
Might get a little heated.
And at times, it might be a little bit random, honestly.
And kind of quirky.
A little quirky and a little random. So make sure you tune in next week when we have our very first guest on the Average Joe Football Show. The very first time ever.
And a little spoiler, I guess, is his name rhymes with Matt Stickholmes.
Matt Stickholmes. Wow, that's tough. So if you guys can crack that code. Also, this is not totally set in stone that we have a guest. So if all of a sudden his guest canceled on us, this is going to make us look a fool.
Yes.
So please, guests, if you're listening to this, do not cancel on us because we've already wasted like 15 minutes of a podcast talking about how you're going to be on next week. And I would look a fool. And make sure you go over, speaking of looking at a fool, go over to my Instagram. I'm going to upload the picture or the videos of me getting slapped in the face.
No way.
Twice by my good buddy.
Right now or on the release date?
It will be up. It will be up by the time you hear this podcast.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say when because whenever I do, I don't do it.
That didn't answer my question at all.
Listen. I'm not here to answer questions. I'm here to talk football. Hit the music, Joe. Week 13 featured all but 2 teams in the NFL. So that means how many games, Joe? If there was only 2 teams not playing, and how many teams are there in the NFL?
32 or 34?
Bullseye. Nope, 32? You got a 32. First try.
Oh, nice. Okay, so
minus 2.
Okay, 30.
Yeah.
15.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen.
It's just
look at that. 15 games.
Quick math. Can we do a segment where you quiz me on quick addition and multiplication?
We'll just work our way up to eventually tougher stuff fractions, like dividing a fraction.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm really good with my times tables, my 12 times tables. I can almost do that yeah.
That's super
really
weird.
Fast.
My wife is also really good, I think, at the 12s.
No, I just mean from 1 to 12. like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know how the times tables work.
Okay.
From 1 to 12, both lines, and you fill in the blanks. I'm really good at that.
Okay, that's super cool.
Anyways, first game of this week was the Vikings at the Raiders.
Joe's taking over. That was not a game that happened this week, but that was pretty smooth.
Pretty close.
The first game we're going to talk about, we didn't have a Thursday night game this week because, again, we're talking about COVID affecting the 2020 NFL season. The first game that we're going to talk about is Sunday night, or Sunday, not night, the opposite of night, the daytime. The Giants at the Seahawks in Seattle, as the Baltimore Ravens just scored live on the podcast right now. It's now 6, pending an extra point by Justin Tucker, so it's automatically going to be 7. There it is, right through the upright. 7-3 lead for the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of this game, real quick, before we get into the game that I was already just teeing up, the Baltimore Ravens game versus the Dallas Cowboys. Lamar Jackson just had a really nice touchdown run. But before the game started, Dez Bryant, the former Cowboy, playing against his former team, it was kind of being hyped up, you know, Dez against his former team. And then right before the game started, Dez gets pulled off while he's warming up to take a COVID test. And he tests positive for COVID. So
you have got to be kidding me.
They yanked him out of the game, and he's not playing now.
Did they have reasonable doubt or like suspicion that he had COVID?
I don't know. Everybody is quite suspicious about it.
Yeah, that sounds rigged.
Yeah, that's because Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, is already sort of a suspicious figure when it comes to the NFL. So it's like, what's going on here? And it's like, oh, and conveniently, the Baltimore Ravens, a team that was riddled with COVID, everybody else on their team didn't have COVID. They all were fine, but Dez, for some reason, has COVID now and can't play in this game. And also, if he has COVID and he was just warming up with his teammates, why are they all playing the game? I think that the NFL and the world in general, for sure the world in general, is making this up as we go. Like, we have no clue. Because it happened in the MLB during the World Series. A player had COVID during a game. They found out and they just yanked him from the game. And they just kept playing. It's like, how serious is it then? How worried are you really if you're going to just keep playing? I guess they're like, it's too late now, everybody. Then why not let him play? You know? I don't know. Anyways, the Giants played the Seahawks and had a huge upset over the Seattle Seahawks. 17-12 victory as the New York Football Giants, the leaders of the NFC East, now sitting at 5-7. I believe they started 1-5, if I'm not mistaken. They're on a 4-game win streak. No, they started 1-7. Holy smokes, 1-7, and they're now 5-7. Seattle moves down to 8-4. This was a surprising game. The Giants had been playing better as of late, like we talked about, a 4-game win streak. But for them to go in and into Seattle, which obviously is not as intimidating as it is when there's fans there, but regardless, for them to go into Seattle and beat them with Colt McCoy at quarterback, who passed for 105 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And real quick, we're going to get this out of the way at the top of the podcast. That gets Colt McCoy our average Joe of the week. Congratulations to our boy Colt McCoy. He went 13 for 22, 105 yards. Did have an interception, but he also had a touchdown, so it kind of evens out. He didn't do anything amazing. He didn't do anything awesome. He wasn't spectacular, but he got the job done. So congratulations, Colt McCoy. And congratulations to the Giants, who, like we said, they're rounding together. Their defense is playing well. I talked about on my power rankings before the season started how I genuinely thought that the Giants might have the worst defense in the history of the NFL, and I was very mistaken. As guys like Leonard Williams are playing actually fairly well to start the season, or to not start the season, it's week 13, but Leonard Williams is having a career year in a contract year, and James Bradbury, the big free agent signing, he is playing really well, and that defense has been playing well the last couple of weeks, and they gave Russell Wilson some troubles as he went 263 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And Russell Wilson, you know, I don't think he's any longer an MVP candidate. It seemed like a lock a few weeks in the season that Russell Wilson was going to win MVP. I think you can almost in pen say that he's not going to win the MVP. He's probably not going to get his first MVP vote. The Seahawks are struggling. They look on and off week in and week out. But this was a really good win for the Giants defense. They finished with 5 sacks and 2 turnovers of the Seahawks, and turnovers have been a huge issue for Seattle and especially for Russell Wilson. And then on to the next game. Speaking of huge victories and surprising victories, the Cleveland Browns go into Tennessee, and the score is close. It's 41-35 victory for the Cleveland Browns, who are now 9-3. They lock up a winning season for the first time in forever, as the Titans drop to 8-4. Baker Mayfield balled out early in this game. I mean, he came out firing on all cylinders. We talk about the way to beat the Tennessee Titans is to not let them get a lead, not let Derrick Henry run the clock out and just beat up your defense. And that's exactly what the Cleveland Browns did, as Baker Mayfield finished with 334 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and Cleveland scored on its first 5 possessions, which that is huge for an offense that has been ugly at times, and this is a team that was continuing to win ugly week in and week out. This was far from ugly. This was a very, very sexy victory for the Cleveland Browns. They went in, they beat a good Tennessee team. Nick Chubb also was good on the ground. He had 80 yards and a touchdown with 26 yards through the air. Ryan Tannehill finished 29 for 45, 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Corey Davis had a big-time game, 11 receptions, 182 yards, and he had a touchdown. But like we talked about, the Browns, this is a big-time victory because despite having a decent record, it really seemed like Cleveland wasn't picking up any quality wins. We saw them, get beat up by the Baltimore Ravens, get trounced by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it was really good for them to go in and just leave no doubt. This game, like we talked about, it finished closer than maybe it was throughout the game. I think it was a dominant victory for this Cleveland Browns team, and they held Derrick Henry to just 60 yards on 15 carries, and just an impressive victory. Baker Mayfield's looking good. It looked at times like he might not be an upgrade over Case Keenum, his backup, but he's been playing really well the last few weeks, and that continued with a really nice victory over the Tennessee Titans. And then on to the next game, and it's the division rivalry. The Saints going into Atlanta and playing the Atlanta Falcons, and the Saints walk away with a 21-16 victory. This one ended up coming down to the wire. It was a fun game to watch. Taysom Hill has arguably his best game as a pro. He threw his very first touchdown pass as a pro NFL player. He hasn't thrown one since his days at BYU, Brigham Young University, the home of the Mormons.
In Utah.
Yeah, in Utah. Joe pipes up when I say BYU.
That's where Brandon Sanderson went as well.
Yeah, wow. The book guy.
The book guy, the author, yeah.
Nice.
Why is that significant?
That he went to BYU?
Yeah.
Well, it's just because Taysom Hill, often guys that go to BYU, it's not really significant. I just kind of threw it in there. But guys that go to BYU, when they come into the NFL, they often come in old because Mormons, they always go on a 2-year mission.
Oh.
Have you heard of that?
Nope.
Okay. I don't know if it's when they're done college or whatever, but they go abroad and they do missions work for 2 years or something. That's a common thing.
Wow.
So Taysom Hill did that, and now he's he was an older rookie. It's just, I don't know. He's just a white guy. He's from Utah. He's from BYU. He hadn't thrown a touchdown pass in the NFL. So I was just saying, the last time he threw one was when he was playing at BYU.
Okay.
And if you were listening, you probably would have heard that. But Taysom Hill, he heard you guys doubting him because he played really well. He finished 27 for 37, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 83 yards on the ground. So a big-time game for Taysom Hill as the Cowboys just score another touchdown. They're up 10-7 on the Baltimore Ravens. Alvin Kamara finally had a bounce-back game, 15 carries for 88 yards on the ground. And this was a solid victory. The Saints have now clinched a playoff spot. They're just keep stacking wins. They're still the number 1 seed in the NFC. And this, a lot of people want to talk about, is there a quarterback controversy in New Orleans because of Taysom Hill playing as well as he is? I doubt it. I think if anything, Taysom Hill has just kind of got himself more playing time. I think he is developing as a passer. We saw his last 2 weeks. He didn't he was making plays, a lot of them with his legs. He wasn't making tremendous throws, but I thought that he played a lot better in this game, really making reads, and just overall as a passer. I thought he played a good game. As Drew Brees is projected to potentially come back next week, I think it's just another weapon that the New Orleans Saints have going into the 2020 postseason with Taysom Hill. So a good solid win against a division opponent and one that usually gives them troubles, but they now finish the season series sweep of the Atlanta Falcons. So a good win for the New Orleans Saints. On to the next game, and it's the Indianapolis Colts against the Houston Texans, another divisional matchup. And the Colts walk away barely by the skin of their teeth with a 26-20 victory over the Houston Texans, despite Deshaun Watson playing really well still. I mean, if he was on a winning team, he would definitely be an MVP candidate, if not win the whole darn thing. He was 26 for 38, 341 yards, no touchdowns through the air, but he did, and an interception, but he did also have 38 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Phillip Rivers played a solid game despite being injured. Apparently he's going to need surgery on his foot. He has extreme turf toe, some people are calling it, which sounds awful. Joe, you're looking that up? Well, just look up turf toe. I don't think extreme turf toe is actually a thing. But he played well. He was 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. A good bounce-back win for the Indianapolis Colts after a disappointing loss to the Tennessee Titans. Jonathan Taylor, finally, a guy that I traded for in fantasy, had himself a game, 91 yards on the ground, 44 through the air. Also had a touchdown through the air. Kiki Kuti. That's a fun name to say. One day we're going to do a podcast where we just find the most fun names in the NFL. And Kiki Kuti has got to be... That's
Kiki Kuti.
His first name, Kiki. Last name, Kuti.
Wow.
What a cool name that is.
Turf toe is a sprain of the big toe joint resulting from injury during sports activities. Like the joint of your big toe. Like, you know the joint on your big toe, the one that bends?
Okay.
And when your foot goes like this,
why are you
bends back?
raising your voice like that?
That's the one. And when you sprain it, that's turf toe. So I guess
just your big toe? Can you get turf toe on a different toe?
I'm sure you could.
Well,
they'll have joints.
Listen, these are real questions that people are going to have. And I'm sure a lot of the questions that Deshaun Watson has, I got to stop with that. That's too many transitions. I do that all the time.
If they work, they work.
Then I think that one was going to work, but if people are going to be like, okay, man, relax
it's
with
really
the
good when you do it. Just do it.
Okay.
Start again.
Okay. How did I do it? Okay, Deshaun Watson, he, like I said, playing really well. He has no help around him. Will Fuller was just suspended. Bradley Roby is now suspended. He has nothing. Bill O'Brien tore that team down. The Colts defense looked way better with Danico Autry and DeForest Buckner back. They are once again back to being their dominant selves with those two guys along that defensive line. And a good win. The Colts still alive with the Titans losing to the Cleveland Browns this week. A good win to stay in the fight for that first place in the division. So a big-time win for Houston. Oh, yeah, and we forgot to talk about the way this game ended. Almost glossed over that. Houston Texans driving. They have a chance to win this game. They're at their 2-yard line. The 2-yard line. Joe, they're 2 yards away from scoring a touchdown. Okay?
How many feet is that?
2 yards. I don't know.
6 feet.
Really?
Yes. 1 yard is 3 feet.
No, I didn't even know that. I watch football. I honestly didn't know that 1 yard is 3 feet. Okay.
You know how many inches that is?
What, 3 feet?
36 inches.
Wow, very good. So they were how many inches away from a touchdown?
They were 72 inches away from a touchdown.
Wow. I don't know if that's correct, but I'm just too lazy to check.
What's 36 times 2? Hey Siri. What's 36 times 2?
36 times 2 is 72.
72. Very good. So they were 72 inches away from a touchdown, and the center for the Houston Texans, Joe, leave us alone. The center for the Houston Texans has a horrible snap that hits off the hip of Deshaun Watson, results in a fumble. The Indianapolis Colts recover, and that's how the Houston Texans lose and fall to 4-8 on what has been a miserable season there in Houston. On to the next game. It was the Raiders at the New York Jets. The winless Jets going into the season, or into this week rather. I really have trouble with weeks and seasons. I always get them mixed up for some reason. But the Jets were winless, the opposite of undefeated going into this game. And this was for sure a trap game for the Las Vegas Raiders, who barely, again, by the skin of their teeth, Joe, I'm talking skin of their teeth. My teeth don't have skin on it, but maybe somebody's teeth do. And the Raiders just barely made it by that skin.
What was the last team that, if there ever was, what was the last team that went completely defeated?
Defeated? That's a good way to put that. The Cleveland Browns, 2016? Yeah, not that long ago, a few years ago, the Cleveland Browns went 0-16. There's been two teams to go 0-16. The Browns and the Detroit Lions.
Wow.
The Jets,
maybe the Jets?
Yeah, probably the Jets. This was really their one chance, I think, to get a win. Who knows? Maybe they'll beat somebody down the stretch. But they were up late in this game. They were up by 4 points. And the Las Vegas Raiders had one final chance. There was less than 30 seconds on the clock. And Greg Williams, the genius that man is, the defensive coordinator for the New York Jets, called a zero blitz in what was a Hail Mary situation. So basically, for those of you that don't maybe know what a zero blitz is, he made it so that his corners were playing man-to-man on receivers that were streaking down the field. And this is not any receivers. One of them is Henry Ruggs, who might possibly be the fastest man in the whole NFL. So you had Lamar Jackson, an undrafted cornerback, not that Lamar Jackson, the other Lamar Jackson, an undrafted cornerback, rookie, playing against Henry Ruggs, and you sent an all-out blitz, no safety help. Lamar Jackson bites on the double double move. Derek Carr launches a ball deep to Henry Ruggs and wins it at the last second. And this really looked like the Jets were intentionally trying to lose this game. I don't think they were. Who knows? But Greg Williams was promptly fired the day after this decision, so he is no longer the defensive coordinator of the New York Jets. What a mind-numbingly stupid play. I mean, it's a complete embarrassment, and the Las Vegas Raiders avoided a complete embarrassment by the Jets just being a little bit better at embarrassing themselves. They've been pretty good at it this season, and you're hoping that all this embarrassment, if you're a Jets fan, results in the ultimate prize, which is Trevor Lawrence at the end of the season. But yeah, this was I still cannot believe the Jets lost this game. It seems almost impossible the way that they lost this game, but they did it. The Jets are finding new ways to lose every single week, and odds are they're on their way to an 0-16 season, and that's what it might take to get that number one pick over the Jacksonville Jaguars and pick the golden boy Trevor Lawrence. On to the next game, and it's the Lions against the Chicago Bears. That's right. Guess who was playing in this game? Tell him, Joe.
Why do you always
listen?
Excuse me. Was it Mr. Bisky?
Mr. Bisky?
Was it Mr. Bisky?
It's our boy, Mr. Bisky, and he did not win this game. I'm not going to lie to you. He didn't win this game. But that's okay. You know, if you support somebody, it's through thick and thin. You know, and he didn't win this game. But on a serious note, the Chicago Bears offense has genuinely looked better with Mitch Trubisky. Sorry. No, what came over me? Mitch Trubisky playing for Chicago. Nick Foles was terrible. He was not getting the job done. Mitch Trubisky came in and genuinely played fairly well. He didn't have an interception in this game. He had 267 yards. Did have a really bad fumble that you cannot have. But Detroit picks up their first win since firing Matt Patricia. In their first game since firing Matt Patricia, Matthew Stafford had 402 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception. Adrian Peterson chipped in 2 touchdowns. Adrian Peterson somehow, some way, still scoring touchdowns in 2020, despite being at least 47 years old. David Montgomery played a pretty decent game, and so did Mitch Trubisky, but it just was not enough to beat the Detroit Lions and that boost that firing your head coach gets. One day a team should try firing a head coach every single week and seeing if you can go undefeated, because it seems like every time a team fires their head coach, they win the next week. So, it's worth a shot. You hire a guy at the beginning of the season, fire him, and then fire his replacement. and then fight just until you have no guys left, and just see if see what the result of that was. But I don't really know where to go from here. The Detroit Lions and the Bears probably don't know where to go from here. They're both 5-7. Not really a chance at the playoffs for either of these teams. It's been a colossal collapse for Chicago, who, listen, they started 3-0 with Mitch Trubisky. With Mitch Trubisky playing, they were 3-0. I just want you guys to know that. And they now lost 6 in a row, Chicago. So you guys did this to yourselves. He was a big part of this podcast. You ripped him away, and you put a hex on yourself. And now you lost to the Detroit Lions. So that's what you get. On to the next game, and it was my Miami Dolphins playing the Cincinnati Bengals in what was a chaotic 19-7 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Tua, it wasn't. We weren't totally sure if he would be playing in this game. It was kind of a game time decision. His agent ends up leaking the fact that he's going to play on Saturday. He puts up a tweet and then deletes the tweet and then edits the tweet, basically to hide the fact that he just gave up the surprise that Tua was going to play on Sunday. I'm sure Brian Flores was happy about that. But Tua came in, and this was a flat performance in the first half by Tua and this offense. They could not get anything done. They were down 7-6 at the half to the 2-8-1 Bengals. Brandon Allen, not Josh Allen, his
cousin.
I was gonna say something mean like no, but I won't. His cousin, sure. When he was 11 for 19, 153 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Most of those yards came on a 72-yard touchdown to Tyler Boyd, who was ejected in this game. Tyler Boyd, yeah. Joe just put a thumbs up as I said Tyler Boyd because he's on his fantasy team. And then he
did not know that.
He got ejected.
Why?
Him and Xavier Howard were throwing hands at each other.
Really?
Xavier Howard, who now has 8 interceptions on the season, the most in the NFL. He had another one in this game. And then later on in the game, him and Tyler Boyd were throwing hands. Not really. They ejected him. You can't throw a punch. As soon as you throw a punch in the NFL, you get ejected. There was no punches thrown. They were kind of just pushing in the general direction of their face. And so they ejected him. It was kind of weak, but there was a lot of chippiness in this game. There would be more ejections. Devontae Parker, Mac Hollins would get ejected. There was some of the biggest cheap shots I've ever seen. The Cincinnati Bengals, and this might be me being biased as a Dolphins fan, but they are dirty. Holy smokes, they're dirty. Sean Williams, the safety for the Cincinnati Bengals, is suspended for this game because he stomped on a Dolphins player's ankle. In the middle, a play ended. Solomon Kindley on the ground, and you can see in the video, Sean Williams look down, see the ankle, stomp on it. As he's stomping on it, he kind of looks up and walks away like it's not happening, and you can tell Solomon Kindley kind of looks like, "Hey man, what the heck?" And so he got suspended for that. That could have been a lot worse. Could have been an injury. That was a dirty play. And then Mike Thomas, not the cool Michael Thomas, the one that's good at football, but the third best Mike Thomas in the NFL, absolutely destroyed Jakeem Grant 2 times on a punt return, hit him way too early. Just some of the dirtiest moves you'll ever see. And this guy is a real piece of garbage. I'm not going to lie, because he did not show any remorse for any of them. He was smiling, having a good time after completely spearing Jakeem Grant, which some of the dirtiest, most dangerous hits you'll see. And that caused a big-time fight. Devontae Parker, one of Jakeem Grant's best friends on the team, ended up throwing punches. It was a big-time brawl. Brian Flores himself, the Dolphins coach, went to midfield and looked like he was down to fight somebody. He was not happy. And that's kind of cool. You know, that's what you like to see from a head coach. He said after the game that he should have controlled himself, but that's exactly why the Dolphins, I think, as a roster, would run through a brick wall for Brian Flores. He's completely changed the culture there. It's a brotherhood. He was saying how he feels like the guys on his team are like his sons, and he has to go and defend them. So that was definitely nice to see him go and do that. And Tua, like we talked about, did not play well in the first half. They came out up tempo. They came out no huddle. Ended up finishing pretty well. They could not finish drives with touchdowns, and I think that goes back to Chan Gailey again. He's not a very good offensive coordinator. But Tua finished 26 for 39, 296 yards, and a touchdown. And Mike Gesicki had 9 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. Another big game for him. And that Dolphins defense took over and allowed, I think, -4 yards up until the very end of the game. in that second half to the Cincinnati Bengals. They also had 6 sacks and 2 interceptions. So a big win, as the Dolphins have a really tough stretch now coming to keep their playoff hopes alive at 8-4. And then we had the New England Patriots going to Los Angeles and playing the essential lock for Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert, and dropping a 45-0 bomb on the Los Angeles Chargers. Bill Belichick exposed, as he usually does with rookie quarterbacks, exposed Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert finished 26 for 53, 209 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. His worst game by far as a pro player. And Cam Newton, somehow, this is insane. He finished 12 for 19, 69 yards, and a touchdown through the air. He had also had 2 touchdowns on the ground and 48 yards. But he had 69 yards passing, and you still won by 45-0. That seems insane. Damian Harris had himself another good game, but 2 special teams touchdowns for New England. Just show how much coaching, I think, plays a factor. Anthony Lynn, we heard things that he's on the hot seat. This is definitely not going to help his case after this week, as the Los Angeles Chargers did not look good against a depleted Patriots team. But like we said, coaching makes a huge difference, and when you have the greatest coach of all time on your sideline, it certainly helps, especially when you score 2 special team touchdowns and put an absolute dominating performance on the Los Angeles Chargers and refuse to go away. I mean, the Patriots, as much as everybody wants them to go away, they refuse to go away, and they're still going to be competitive here in the late weeks, looking to get into the playoffs. Then we had another divisional matchup, the Rams at the Cardinals. And the Rams walk away with a 38-28 victory. Jared Goff, after being criticized by almost everybody, including his head coach, had a big-time bounce-back game. 37 for 47, 351 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Kyler Murray, he just has not been the same. I don't know if it's since that shoulder injury or what's going on, but he was 29 for 39, 173 yards. He did have 3 touchdowns, but he also had an interception, and he lost a fumble. And this Cardinals offense has not been the same the last few weeks. They dropped to 6-6 now, and the Rams moved to 8-4, back atop the NFC West. So a good win for a team that, there was a lot of doubts with them as they lost to the San Francisco 49ers the week before. But it was a good win. Goff bounced back. Their defense is playing well, and the Cardinals, they have some demons to exercise. They have not been playing well lately. Their offense, their passing game is going back to looking how it did closer to the beginning of the season and not so much in the middle of the season. So you hope that they can figure things out, and they're going to have to, because with the Rams now surging, and then you have the Seahawks tied there for first place in that division, you're going to have to get your stuff together, especially with the 49ers potentially not being out of the playoff race. On to the next game, we had the Philadelphia Eagles at the Green Bay Packers, and it was a 30-16 victory for the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers finishes 25 for 34, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, and not a pick in sight. Aaron Jones has himself a day as well. 15 carries, 130 yards, and Devontae Adams also 10 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That offense for the Packers is loaded. I mean, we thought that Aaron Rodgers didn't have any weapons going into the season. We criticized the front office for not getting him more weapons, but it looks like they're going to do just fine with the weapons that they have. We've seen Robert Tonyan play well this year, and Alan Lazard's been helpful when he's been healthy, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling either scores a 70-yard touchdown or drops a game-winning catch. There's no in-between with him, but he still has flashes once in a while. So a big victory for the Green Bay Packers and for the Philadelphia Eagles. They finally did it. They benched Carson Wentz after what has been a miserable season there in Philadelphia. Carson Wentz was 6 for 15, 79 yards. He was sacked 4 times before he was finally mercifully pulled for Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts honestly came in and gave them a little bit of a spark. It almost seemed like they might come back in this game to win or at least compete to win this game. As Jalen Hurts came in, they scored a touchdown, and they had a punt return for a touchdown. They were making some stops on the Packers. But then Aaron Jones had himself a huge touchdown run to put the dagger in the hearts of the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts has officially been named the starter there in Philadelphia, and I think this is the right move for the Eagles. This season is lost. I mean, it all honestly seems, as sad as it is, with how bad the NFC East is, it seems like that's out of the question at this point. You're not going to win that division, as some of the other teams are starting to improve, and the Eagles have shown no signs of improvement. I think it's, right now as they sit, they would have the 6th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. And if you have the 6th pick, you're well within range to get a good quarterback. So why not see what you have with Jalen Hurts? Even if you're not totally sold on giving up on Carson Wentz this season, if you're in position to get one of those top-tier quarterbacks, you want to know what you have. And we saw Carson Wentz just wasn't able to do much this season at all. And you can blame him, you can blame the coaching, you can blame the injuries, you can blame the surrounding talent, but he just wasn't good enough. And now Jalen Hurts gets his chance, and they get a chance to see what they have with him and potentially where they go in the future at the quarterback position and as a team in general. I think this team is going to have to do a lot of retooling, a lot of rebuilding, because there's a lot of holes on this roster. And then on to the Sunday night game is the Broncos at the Chiefs. And the Chiefs walk away with another victory, 22-16. Patrick Mahomes finishes with 318 yards, a touchdown. Travis Kelce, 136 yards and a touchdown. And the Denver Broncos tried their very best to hang around with the Kansas City Chiefs, but they just could not, come out with a victory. Could not stop Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce rather. Drew Lock played okay. He could have maybe potentially been average Joe of the week if they would have won. But he was 15 for 28, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Melvin Gordon had 131 yards on the ground. But like I said, the Broncos played it close. Their defense played fairly well. But Patrick Mahomes is just too much. And I think he's the MVP frontrunner. I think it pretty much comes down at this point to him and Aaron Rodgers. And it's going to be fun to see where that goes in the future. Who's gonna pull ahead and who's gonna win an MVP? Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back out of nowhere and win an MVP, or will Patrick Mahomes continue his utter dominance of the NFL and win yet another MVP just a few years into his career? Finally, on to the final 2 games that we talked about. We're not going to talk about the Cowboys and Ravens game as it's still going on. The Cowboys just missed a field goal. The Ravens lead 14-10 in the second quarter, I believe. It's commercial right now, so I can't see. But Washington at Pittsburgh, the Washington football team, with one of the biggest upsets of the season. We talked about some of these NFC East teams surging. Everybody basically but the Eagles and potentially the Cowboys surging right now at the best time for that NFC East. The Washington football team go into Heinz Field and upset the 11-0 undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, give them their first L of the season, a 23-17 victory. Steelers started off hot. I think they got off to a 14-0 lead over Washington. At that point, I thought it was over. I thought there was no chance Washington was coming back in this game, but they did. Alex Smith, despite bleeding from his leg at one point, and a lot of blood, and that's a guy whose leg was almost gone.
Why was he bleeding from his leg?
I think he got cleated. I think somebody hit him with a cleat.
Oh, so it's not like an old wound?
No, it was. I don't even think it was the same leg. Uh-huh. But initially watching it, I kind of turned over to the TV and saw his leg gushing blood, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like that was a scare, because Alex Smith is like everybody's baby, and we just want to protect him right now because holy smokes, be careful out there, Alex Smith. But he was not careful when he was destroying this Pittsburgh Steelers defense again with the transitions. I gotta just stop doing that. But he was 31 for 46, 296 yards, a touchdown. And Logan Thomas, who has been sort of a fun little player for the Washington football team, he finished with 9 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. He's a big offensive weapon for that Washington team. And that Washington defense is well-rounded. They're coming into their own. They have a talented, obviously, defensive line. They have some pretty good linebackers. Their secondaries really underrated. And they gave the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, their best fight of the season as they went in and handed them their first loss. That defense can be a problem. Montez Sweat seems to knock down like 4 passes every single game. and he had a huge tipped pass that ended up with an interception that locked this game up for Washington. And in the 1972 Dolphins rejoice with this victory because now they are still the one thing that the Dolphins fans are just hanging on to. Only undefeated team in the history of the NFL. Your 1972 Dolphins. Obviously, it's a little bit different this year as Don Shula passed away. So it's a little bit bittersweet for Dolphins fans and for that 1972 team. But still pretty sweet to still be the only undefeated team in NFL history. Good try, Steelers, but not quite. Then we move on to the final game that we're recapping, and it is the official Monday Night Football game. The other one was just a game that got moved, but Monday Night Football on ESPN, and it was the Buffalo Bills against the San Francisco 49ers. I did pick the Bills to win this game. I thought that the Niners would give them a better fight. I thought that it would maybe be a close game and that the 49ers could maybe, even pull off a victory as they looked really good against the Rams. But the Bills, they were dominant in this game, and Josh Allen was really good in this game. There are games where he just takes over, and there seems like there's wide open receivers all over the field. He finds Stephon Diggs every other pass attempt on the sidelines for like a 20, 30-yard gain, and he was good. He was dealing the Bills all the way to a 34-24 victory. He finished 32 for 40, 375 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's a potential MVP candidate. Don't sleep on Josh Allen, who I was still dead wrong about coming into this season. Cole Beasley's been a huge help for this Buffalo Bills team. He had 9 receptions, 103 yards, and a touchdown. And little Nicky Mullins, he plays really good at some points, and then some points he does things that make you scratch your head. He finished with 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. And the Bills, they just win games that they should win. That is one of the things as a Dolphins fan, it's frustrating because the Bills, they don't go into games like this where they should win, where they're the better team. They don't lose these games. If they are the better team, they're going to win. They're going to go and take care of business, and they're consistent week in and week out. They've had a couple of they've had 3 losses on the season. None of them really all that unimpressive. You can say that the Titans game was a tough loss, but there was a lot of chaos going on there with COVID-19. But the Buffalo Bills, they continue to stack wins, and I would say they've just about locked up the AFC East, which is big for that Buffalo Bills team. And Josh Allen is playing out of his mind, and Sean McDermott has completely turned this team around, and they're looking good heading into the postseason. Moving on to the final segment in today's show, and it's the picks for Week 14. We start things off with a Week 14 Thursday Night Coffee pick sponsored by Folgers. That's right, Folgers Coffee. Thank you so much.
How does that theme song go?
Everybody knows your name. That one? Is
that Saved by the Bell?
No. This is so broken. Oh gosh. I think that's Cheers. The show Cheers? Maybe. I don't even know. I hope I'm right on that.
Is that the one where it's like a bunch of those scientists that are like best friends and they like live close to each other? It's like a pretty bad show, but
no, I think it's the one where it's a group of friends and they're just friends.
Oh, yeah. And then there's like the silly one, and then the one who's always got the problems.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that's definitely the one.
Oh, okay.
With the Patriots at the Rams on Thursday Night Football, I'm picking the Rams despite the Patriots going on a little bit of a streak here. I still think the Rams are playing well. I'm going to pick them to win 31-20 over the New England Patriots. I just don't think the Patriots have enough firepower as far as an offensive passing game goes. And they have a good run game, but the Rams have Aaron Donald. And I think that will be the difference maker in this game. Then we move on to the 1 o'clock games. We have Kansas City at Miami. As much as I would love for my Miami Dolphins to go in and beat Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champions, I cannot pick them. I can't do it. So the Miami Dolphins, I'm going to pick them to lose. Kansas City. And also a fun fact, I did not pick a lock last week. I forgot. I wasn't scared. I just forgot. I wasn't scared. You didn't slap it into me. I just totally forgot to pick a lock.
Was last week the slap week?
Yeah, last week you slapped me. That was
a week ago.
It was like 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
I thought that was like 2 episodes ago.
No, it was last week for sure. In Houston at Chicago, I'm going to pick Chicago to win that game. And then Tennessee at Jacksonville, I'm going to pick Tennessee. Jacksonville's not good. And then Denver at Carolina. This is a game that could go either way, I think. But I like Carolina. I think they're a fun team. They're coming off a bye week. I'm going to pick them to outgun Drew Lock and the Denver Broncos. And Dallas at Cincinnati. I'm going to pick Dallas. I don't think they're perfect, but I think they're playing better. Their defense has been better. The defensive line is not atrocious anymore. I'm going to pick them to beat Cincinnati. And then Arizona at the New York Giants. And this was another one that I really struggled to pick, but I'm going to pick the Giants. I think Arizona is in a bad spot. They're struggling right now. The Giants, their defense coming together. It's in New York. Kyler Murray has to play outside. I don't know if he's really affected by that, but I'm going to say that he is. I'm going to say the Giants beat the Arizona Cardinals. And then Minnesota at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay coming off a bye week. I'm going to pick them to win that game, but I wouldn't be totally surprised to see Minnesota win, but I'm going to pick Tampa Bay coming off that bye. And then we move into the 4 o'clock games. As Indianapolis versus Las Vegas. And this is my lock of the week. I'm going to lock up the Indianapolis Colts to beat the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't feel confident about it. And as a Dolphins fan, you root against the Raiders because they're competing for one of those last playoff spots. And then the Jets at Seattle. The Jets fall to 0-13 now with a loss to Seattle, I'm projecting. And then Green Bay at Detroit. I'm going to pick Green Bay to win that game because they are awesome. And then Atlanta at the Los Angeles Chargers. I think Atlanta is a pretty decent team, better than the Chargers, so I'm going to pick them to win that game. And then New Orleans at Philadelphia. The Eagles are not good, despite moving to Jalen Hurts. Not quite good enough to beat one of the best teams in the NFL. New Orleans going to win that game. Washington at San Francisco. I originally picked San Francisco, but I changed my mind. I'm going to say Washington wins that game. And them and the Giants just duke it out for that final playoff spot there, that division win there in the NFC East. And then we move on to the Sunday night game, Pittsburgh at Buffalo. This is a fun game. Looking forward to this matchup. And I'm going to pick Buffalo to win. Pittsburgh just suffered their first loss of the season, and I think it's going to go to 2 straight losses as Buffalo is playing really well. Loved what I saw out of them on Monday Night Football, and I think they keep it going with a big win over Pittsburgh. And then Baltimore at Cleveland on Monday Night Football to end things off. I'm going to pick Cleveland. As much as I'm not confident about that, I like what Cleveland is doing right now. I think Baltimore's going the opposite direction, but maybe they can get things together with Lamar Jackson back now as they're up 17-10 on the Cowboys right now. But I'm going to pick Cleveland to win that. And that sort of wraps things up on today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know about you, Joe. I enjoyed myself.
I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed watching videos on your phone while I was talking again?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I wasn't. I was looking up stuff that's valuable to the podcast.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
BTS stuff.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to console Joe, so I'm going to have to let you guys go. But if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. We would really appreciate it. Again, we have a surprise guest next week. I think it's going to add a fun aspect to the podcast. Really looking forward to it, as long as he doesn't cancel on us. But we have a surprise guest next week, so make sure you tune into that and give us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening to the podcast, but especially on Apple Podcasts. Because if you give us a 5-star rating, you give us a review, we'll say whatever you want on the podcast. Whatever you want, as long as it's not offensive or mean or bullying, we'll say it on this little show. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Average Joe Show. Looking forward to the home stretch here of the NFL season. A lot of fun playoff matchups, especially in the AFC. It seems like it's really going to come down to the wire. Joe, you got anything to say before we send them off?
Nah, man.
Okay. I think it's becoming a tradition where you have nothing to say at the end of the podcast.
Well, you just throw it in there.
Okay.
Want me to improv?
Yes.
Give me a character.
Okay. We will catch you guys on the next one.